don't know what that means. Sorry, I don't know if that means something, Sunderland, but I don't know what that means. Morning, Amanda. Making the coffee, doing the thing. Morning, Elizabeth. Morning, Liz. It was okay. Wasn't the best, but it was okay. Morning. Okay. I feel like we are missing some key people. I wonder if I should invite them if it didn't tell them that we're on. Just so that they don't miss it if they don't want to miss it. Because I have a second thing here that I was going to ask you guys about this morning. We'll see what everybody says. Here in just a second. Oh, miss coffee making. Yeah. TikTok's been doing some fun, not alerting anybody kind of things. What is this, do we think? This piece of hair right here, what do we think is that? What do we think this piece of hair is doing? Okay, so what I wanted to ask you guys was, obviously, we're going to finish Gauntlet, and we will have another book after that. The book after Gauntlet can be the next book in the series, or we can take a break and read something else and then come back to the rest of the series. But what I was going to say was, and this is, Zoe and my sister and I go for walks a lot at the park, and there's a little library at the park, and we always check it out because, Zoe likes to get books from the little library. And this book by Chris Coffer was in the little library yesterday, and it's in really good condition. I mean, a lot of the books there are in really good condition, but I've been thinking about possibly reading this series of his. Trying to work on your personal computer. Oh dear. I've been thinking about reading this series of his, and I just never picked it up because even though it sounds like it's something I'd be interested in, I'm obviously pretty behind now because he's had so many already over the years. But yeah, It is a kid's book for sure. Like, there's no question that it's a kid's book. It's not like the Stepsisters one where we were like, oh, we thought it was going to be a little bit more new adult and a little bit less young adult. And that was definitely young adult, not kids. This is definitely kids. But I wanted to see if maybe you all were interested in checking it out with me. If not, I'll read it on my own and put it back in the little library. But if y'all are interested, we can read it after we read Gauntlet, and then we can go to the rest of Gauntlet. I don't know. It's supposed to be really good. And obviously I love anything fairy tale related. And yes, like I said, it is a kid's book, but it's supposed to be really good. Also, I don't think it'll hurt to have a less heavy book. Yeah, definitely not. Well, I don't think Gauntlet is very heavy. I mean, I don't know. Becca, you don't think Gauntlet's heavy, do you? I mean, Gauntlet's obviously like got a comedic element to it, like the subject matter, like the fact that there's like war and stuff, but it's like not real war, you know. The Gauntlet's in 2343, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so it's called Land of Stories, The Wishing Spell, and it basically just says, Alex and Connor Bailey's world is about to change. When the twins' grandmother gives them a treasured fairy tale book, they have no idea they're about to enter a land beyond all imagining, the land of stories where fairy tales are real, which definitely seems right up my alley. I don't know about y'all. We could try, and if we're not into it, we can change. Yeah, definitely. Sasha, isn't it? Yeah, no, I mean, like, I'll finish it regardless, even if I don't end up finishing it with you all. But I think it could be cute. And because it's a kid's book, we'll probably read through it pretty fast. And if we like it, maybe we'll get more of the books in the series. I don't know. So we'll try it after Gauntlet, and then we can order more of the Gauntlet series, you know, and then when those come, we can do that. So, for anyone who missed out yesterday, the recap of this is always on the video app. Yesterday's is in 2 pieces because of what happened, but also, did anybody, I just placed a hold on the library. Oh, perfect. Did anybody miss yesterday? Just because I'm not going to give you any spoilers if you don't want, but I do want to tell you something funny that happened about the chapters, because this is going to sound like, otherwise what I first say here is going to sound funny. Who missed yesterday? Hey, Haley. Okay, so for anyone who missed yesterday, he basically has this here as chapter 15. Well, hold on, Sarah. I'm going to explain that to you guys right now. So he basically has this here as chapter 15, this one little tiny segment where he says, I hate the number 15, so I'm going to skip chapter 15. Right? That's basically what he says in that little part there. And then you go on to chapter 16, which is only just this page and this little like line right here. And on chapter 16, he says, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes, wait, why are you confused? You know what I mean? And then he's like, oh, I guess you're confused because I skipped chapter 15. And then so he goes, all right, fine. I'll go back to chapter 15. So what we're going to read today is chapter 15 continued, which is chapter 15. You know what I mean? So it's funny. Yeah, it was pretty funny. So we're going to read chapter 15 continued right now, but I just wanted to make sure I cleared that up for anyone who wasn't here yesterday, why they're like, what do you mean? So yeah, that nobody missed chapter 15 yet. This is really going to drive me nuts, this piece of hair. It's going to drive me absolutely nuts if it doesn't get itself in order. I really don't like it. Okay. Chapter 15 continued. We exited the bunker, and I was reminded yet again that my suit was lacking a helmet. Chloe donning hers was one big reminder, but the frigid wind slicing into my face was the biggest one. Instinctively, I checked my glove to see how cold it was, and I grimaced. The black screen was the worst reminder yet. We made one last stop at the bodies Chloe had chalked up to make sure that at least one helmet was usable, and as luck would have it, one turned out to be. Got this one in the neck, Chloe said with about as much ease as a golfer would mention a birdie. I caught it when she tossed it to me, and then I noticed the blood all over it, and I made a face. So don't allow them to watch Peppa Eloise. Put on the tab. That's terrible, Becca. Gross, was all I said before sliding it over my head. It wasn't too gross, though, because the blood was frozen over. Yeah, that made wearing a blood-covered helmet not as gross, right? Don't be such a baby, I heard Chloe's voice crackle in my ear. Just next time, maybe a little less frozen blood? I shot over to her. Tell me, Jericho, Chloe began, taking a step away from me. I noticed her right foot was slowly twisting slightly on the snow-covered ground, a universal sign for catch me if you can. Do you like your women fast, or is that just a fabricated exterior? I opened my mouth to tell her that I simply adore fast women, but I never got the chance to say it because she bolted into the mist, kicking up snow as she did so. Oh, no, she didn't, I muttered before speeding after her. She must not really have been trying to get away from me because when the cap speed was close to 60 miles an hour, whoever got the head start wasn't about to get caught. So when I locked up beside her and said, hey, beautiful day, ain't it? This was meant to be sarcastic due to the extremely unbeautiful day we were running through at that moment. So I was kind of thrown when she said, yes, very. After running at top speed for almost 5 minutes, we both skidded to a halt on what appeared to be a large white embankment that overlooked what I was guessing was Flagstaff, or at least what was left of it. The city looked like a snapshot from any zombie apocalypse film you could think of. Large buildings here and there, missing huge sections of important structural spots on them, and no lights on anywhere. The only signs of life were the large smokestacks that seemed to border the entire city, billowing black smog like crazy. I'm guessing you guys aren't exactly green folks around here. Hey, Addie. When Chloe asked what the heck I was talking about, I went on to explain that the Save the Earth jazz that was going on back home, which led me to a thought. Did the ice caps ever melt? I asked, turning away from Flagstaff and looking at her. The what? You know, the polar ice caps. Did they melt? Chloe wasn't exactly sure what I was asking, but she figured if I was thinking of a landmark or a standing structure, that I'd pretty much bet on it being non-existent after World War III. Wait, hold up, I said, perplexed. I remember you saying something about World War IV back at the lab. Wasn't III not bad enough to mention? Normally we don't count the Third World War because it was less than 10 minutes long, Chloe said, shrugging. Wow, did America or Russia fire first? Russia, but not on America. We hit South Africa and Finland. Why? Nukes are the norm in 2012, don't get me wrong, but what changed that made the people, I don't know, actually use them? The rest of the world all believed it was because we were the next target. We had been at war for over a decade with Finland and South Africa, and South Africa had just joined the Finnish against us. I frowned. You say the rest of the world like that's not the reason you guys fired. Because that's not the real reason, she said, hitting a button and lifting her mask. I took this as a cue and lifted my mask. We all thought that when the time finally came, Mother Russia would win with honor. She took a few steps closer to me, which was fine with me, except that all the flirtatiousness was out of the question due to the way she looked when she talked. In the end, all it took was for someone high on the ladder to have too much vodka. Thus started the end of World War III. You mean that's all that's left of the world because some schmuck's vodka bottle happened to be sitting right next to a DEFCON 1 bottle? I asked, sweeping my left hand towards Flagstaff. Chloe turned away as her mask clamped down. Welcome to the future, Jericho. I fell in step behind her as we made our way down the slope towards Flagstaff. But you guys have the gloves, I told her. You could have zipped back and stopped Otis Campbell from nuking the planet. Can't, she said simply. Can we drop it? Chloe was irritated, that much was certain. I'm guessing it was mostly due to Russia's premature nuke fest, which I was also guessing was embarrassing to any Russian. But I could tell that I'd struck a chord with my time travel idea. Why? I said, drop it, she growled. Grabbing her shoulder, I whirled her around to face me. Tell me why, Chloe. I wasn't trying to be irritating, but her irritation was irritating me. I couldn't see her face because of her helmet, but I could feel the glare. And what would knowing the answer do for you, Jericho? I let go of her shoulder. Just tell me. Although I could see she wasn't too thrilled about it, Chloe said, Fallout. Yeah, I noticed, I said, looking around. Don't tell me that's the reason. Generally, yes, she said. After the warheads went off, everything changed. Not only did it move the planet further from the sun, thus beginning the everlasting ice age, but it also messed up the Earth's core structure as well, or fixed it, as my father would say. Maybe fixed if you were a mammoth, I muttered, glancing around at the snowy landscape. Or trying to create a time-traveling device, Chloe said. After the restructure, which was one of the real reasons most of the cities collapsed, new elements were discovered, one of which resides in all 3 gloves. Taking all of this in wasn't the easiest thing in the world, just saying, but I was pretty sure I knew the reason now. So you're saying that since the gloves were only created because of nuclear fallout, then any notion of using the fallout offspring to go back and stop the fallout from happening is out of the question? Chloe turned around to resume her trudging with me close behind. Brilliant, was all she said, still tickled that I'd made her explain the whole drunk Russian nuke story. The rest of the journey to the edge of Flagstaff was silent. Chloe was probably just fuming, although I wasn't so sure about her thoughts. Entering the city was a cinch. I thought I was going to enjoy ninja-like reflexes and maximum stealth. Wait, that's an oxymoron, because ninja-like reflexes state that maximum stealth has already been initiated. Anyway, the point is that entering the city turned out to be simple. One minute we were walking towards Flagstaff, and the next we were walking in it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it when I can walk without dodging a bullet, but I was at least expecting a few unmanned turrets or something equally as sentinel-like, you know? Abandoned cars lined the streets, their broken out windows and flat tires looking ever so... Wait. There weren't any tires on the scrapped cars. Where were the tires, you might ask? Okay, you might not. So I'll just say, welcome to the future, Will Robinson. I've only been to the 2012 Flagstaff once in my life, and although the air there was a little thin for my taste, the journey did end with me coming home with a time-traveling glove, so I guess I can't really judge the city too much. After living in Chicago, the streets of Flagstaff had felt severely spread out to me, and all the drivers had plenty of room to get around without killing someone. Future Flagstaff didn't even look sort of like the one I remembered, and not because of the whole nuclear wasteland feel either. The entire city structure was different now, complete with thin streets, tall cramped buildings on both sides, and lots of messed up future cars. You sure we're not in New York? I asked Chloe, glancing around. Get down, was her reply, her voice low in my ear. Not knowing what else to do, I ducked into an alley and behind a dumpster, squatting low and putting my back against the brick wall. And then I noticed that Chloe was right beside me. Hey, good looking, I said, smiling behind my helmet. Shut up, fool, she whispered. There's an S-20 in the streets. That shut me up. I mean, one minute we were skipping through the streets all cake and ice cream, and the next we were ducking for cover. The concrete shook beneath me. Whatever we were hiding from stomped down the street, each step resounding loudly in the alley. Dropping my voice to a whisper, I asked in my quietest voice just how big an S-20 was exactly, because it felt like Godzilla was coming. It can't hear us, but keep your voice down anyway, Chloe said, and then I saw the shadow. The S-20 had stopped right in front of the alley we were hiding in like rats, and although I couldn't see it because of the dumpster, the tall silhouette that was cast along the damp snow-covered alleyway was very discernible. Gulping as I peered at the enormous shadow cast by the S-20, I asked in a whisper, Is that an Autobot or a Decepticon? Because I'm on whatever side this guy's on. And then a lot of stuff happened all at once. The first of which was that the dumpster we were hiding behind was ripped from the pavement with ease by the S-20. It didn't look like anything any Transformer I'd ever seen before. By the way, it was a lot less friendly. Ah! I screamed, scrambling backward when the huge mech turned 2 Gatling guns our way and started firing. Hi, Jericho! Chloe shouted, leaping over me and running towards the... Wait. We finally caught up with where I started. Phew. Finally. See? And you thought you were missing out on some big, huge, crazy part of the story, didn't you? I tried to skip it, but you said no. And don't even try to pin in finishing chapter 15 on me. That was all you, whoever you are. Just saying. Chapter 16 continued. I pulled my assault rifle round, switching to frag mode and leveling down. All right, Jericho, you wanted adventure? This is about as adventurous as you're going to get, buddy. Aiming at the crumbling street behind the S-20 because, Chloe happened to be right in front of it and that seemed the best place at the time, I took a deep breath before launching my first grenade. Concrete flew in all directions as the frag exploded on impact, causing the mammoth S-20 to rock on its mammoth legs a bit, which was all Chloe needed. In a split second, she was soaring into the air, cutting a double front flip before landing on top of the mech's dome head. Well, it wasn't really a head, per se. The body of S-20 was made to resemble a human figure. All but where should have been a head, there was a dome-like area where the pilot sat, peering out at the world through God knows how thick ballistic glass, and the touchscreen buttons, switches, and gadgets on the glass visible backwards for anyone who found themselves unfortunate enough to see the pilot fingering out commands of death on the tinted dome. Unless it happened to be Chloe Sparks, someone who happened to know the S-20's sweet spot. Drawing back a curled steel-clad fist, Chloe delivered a blow of all blows directly at the center of the dome before crawling quickly to the rocking S-20's top and leaping to the other side, crossing her arms over her chest and slipping through the hole that my frag had created in the street and disappearing below. The pilot had by this time regained some of the S-20's composure and started looking around for his two missing targets. I frowned. Shouldn't Chloe's amazing fist bump of doom, have at least broken the glass shield or cracked it? I'm not a picky person most of the time, so I would have been thrilled with at least a scratch or something. And then it happened. The dome started cracking from the center, spreading out slowly at first before the veins picked up speed, and the entire dome was one big shatter. I'm going to take a shot in the dark here and say that I'm pretty sure that the dude in the pilot seat couldn't see a dang thing, partly because it looked that way, and partly because the panicking pilot began spinning the S-20 in a complete 360, swirling at the waist while firing wildly with his humongous Gatling guns. Let's not forget that Chloe was a baby blanket safe under the street, while I, who was not, had to leap 30 feet backward to avoid being cut in half by bullets as they made their way to the rooftop due to the crazy carousel of death. "Jericho!" Chloe's voice buzzed in my helmet. "Yes, dearest," I cooed back, darting quickly to my right to avoid more of the bullets that cut through the building beneath me like butter. My only inclination of the approaching waves of hot lead were the visible slices that sped towards me. "Can he see?" "No," Chloe confirmed, "but he knows that we won't attack while he's firing like a maniac." "So what's the plan, Stan?" I asked, again having to dart out of the way of yet more bullets. "And please, take your time. I actually enjoy being buffeted to near-death experience after a near-death experience, so joke's on you." "The glass dome is weakened. All it needs is one of your grenades," Chloe said. "Can you get close enough?" "If I want to die, yes, I'd say getting close enough to pop off a grenade or two wouldn't be hard, but newsflash," I rolled out of the way of another bullet, "I don't." "Listen to me, Jericho," Chloe screamed, her lecture cut as short as a huge groaning sound. "It's coming through the street. Do it now." Without thinking, I sprinted to the end of the building. "Get away from it!" I shouted, performing the best swan dive imaginable off the side of a 12-story building, or it would have been a swan dive if my arms had been spread out in serenity instead of wielding an assault rifle, which I brandished mid-dive, soaring directly over the S-20. I literally felt bullets cut through the air all around me as I aimed at the maniacal mech, and then I shot off another grenade. It's funny. I'd seen this maneuver done in a movie once. I also fantasized about doing this maneuver in my wildest nerdy dreams. But I gotta say, the landing, that thing that happens after you leap from a bullet-ridden 12-story building was never part of my fantasies. After that day, I knew why. Because when you jump off a 12-story building, no matter how drenched with bodacity and no matter how you do it in the air, there isn't really a way to land that's not riddled with pain and sorrow. I got it handed to whoever made the S-16, though. Those things can take a beating. My dive kept going after I launched my frag, and I didn't stop until I crashed through the 6-story window of the opposite building across the street, landing hard on my armored stomach and skidding almost 20 feet before stopping when my helmet connected with the leg of a coffee table. I don't really remember the words I said as I climbed to my hands and knees, just as well because it was probably something wimpy. And then my grenade went off. The floor shook beneath me before the entire room collapsed, and I fell through a few levels before stopping at what I was guessing was the third or fourth floor of the crumbling building. Hoping Chloe was well out of the way from the S-20 as it went boom would have been on my mind. Just hadn't been then. After I got to my feet, the building started to teeter. It's really hard to explain the feeling of being inside a collapsing building, so here's my best analogy. It's like being inside a large wooden box, falling into an active volcano and scraping along the walls all the way down. Got a good mental pic? Good. Now throw me, the hero of this tale, into the same mental pic, yelling, sweating, and running in crazy slow motion towards the nearest window as the pitch of the floor rises more and more until I'm running almost a vertical surface by the time I break through the icy glass. I didn't really fly through gracefully, so while you got that mental pic rolling around in your little noggin, picture me screaming like a banshee and running on the now almost horizontal brick wall of the building and not quite making it to the bottom when it finally touches down. Irony wasn't through with me yet, though, and I landed... Irony wasn't through with me yet, though, and I ended up being right over another window when the building landed before I knew it, and I was back inside the building on a grungy couch looking up at the brick wall that fell on top of me. Ouch. Ouch more to the situation than the actual feeling, because it felt like I was being dogpiled by 6-year-olds more than being buried alive by a ton of bricks. Thank you, S-16. I love you. Trash day, as you can hear. Oh, trash day. Forgot it was Tuesday until I heard the trash truck. Yes, Becca, it is Tuesday, and it is trash day. All right, chapter 17. It took Chloe almost 5 minutes to remove enough rubble for me to poke a hand out and another 3 to actually pull me out. Are you injured? She asked, examining my suit for dents or punctures. My heart was racing, my mind was buzzing, and my body felt drenched in sweat. But other than that, I could still see, and I didn't feel like I was about to puke too bad, so I was guessing I wasn't about to die. I'm good, I told her, climbing to my shaky feet. Removing my helmet so that I could breathe easier, I found a spot in what was left of the apartment and sat down. Sorry about that. The power went out for last night for 5 hours. Whoa, that sucks. I ran a metal glove through my soaking hair, spitting out the bile that started working its way up my throat and halfway between the buildings during my leap of faith. You okay? I asked, glancing at her as she removed her helmet, letting her hair, which, might I point out in annoyance, looked extremely dry, shiny, and positively daisy fresh, tumbled down as she did so. It'll take more than one S-20 piloted by an inexperienced fascist to kill me, she stated with confidence. I would have settled for you at least breaking a sweat, I muttered. So that means that the fascists control Flagstaff? Chloe, who didn't have to sit down to regain her composure like me, took this time to reload her assault rifle. Not at all. Neither the Bears nor the fascists have control of Flagstaff. Both parties would rather keep it that way since it's occupied by the Reds and it's completely neutral in the war. And thus can sell weapons and no doubt thus it can sell the weapons no doubt being created here to both sides, I finished. Chloe smiled at me as she cocked her rifle. Just so, since it would cost me more time and men to seize the city from both sides than to just buy what they needed. The Reds are left to their own devices. Not to mention that failed attempt for control would most likely result in the Reds joining up with the other side and cutting off trade rights, I said, getting a surprised smile from Chloe. That's amazing, was all she said. Her smile was saying the rest. Now, if I could only keep up the act of being freakishly knowledgeable philanthropist instead of some geek who had been betrayed by the French one too many times in medieval II, Total War, then I'd be looking better and better all the time. You're red? I asked, standing and starting to reload my own rifle. Proudly, Chloe said. We represent the very heart of Russia with our hard work, engineering, and love for people. Let me guess. The fascists have the moral and religious ideas. The bears have the power, firepower, and stubborn streak that you guys fix everything that breaks because the two sides put too much time into morals and power, right? Chloe frowned, rolling her eyes around in thought before saying, That's pretty much it. I nodded knowingly. Just so you know, I always choose the industrious sides in every online game that comes down the pike. Chloe didn't really know what to say to that as we made our way back to the street, or what was left of the S-20 was smoldered away in chunks. I asked her what he'd been doing there and why he decided to attack us since we were wearing fascist armor and all. That little inquiry induced a 10-minute lecture that brought me up to speed on the difference between actual fascist, which was what the S-20 guy had been, and the rogues, which was what the guys who had dropped an EMP grenade into my 2340 welcome packet had been. Also, somewhere in the lecture, she told me that we actually need to get out of our current armor ASAP because no one likes the rogues due to their knack for ambushing convoys from all sides and preying on the weak. Her final answer about why the S-20 had been there was most likely to buy fuel. If you love this junk, Chloe said as we slunk through the streets waving at my armor, then you should get a real rush out of my father's new design christened the Dragunov. Haven't become available for combat as of yet, but when they do, they'll cost right at 100 million hollows a unit. What's a hollow? I asked. The digital equivalent to 1 ruble. I was shocked at the price at first, and then I remembered that a ruble was way different from a good old US bucks, that 100 million rubles was right around 3,406,251 for us. And 15 cents. Can your daddy's new Dragunov run as fast as these? I asked, stepping into yet another alleyway behind Chloe. Actually, they've only been clocked at 40 miles per hour top speed. I nodded, not really sure where her dad had made this crazy breakthrough that I was supposed to go get a rush out of if 40 miles per hour was all I could get out of his new design. And then Chloe sealed the deal by smiling at me and saying, but it can fly over 200. See? Isn't the future flipping great? I had a feeling that Dr. Atrium Sparks and I were going to get along just fine. After we found a suitably abandoned shack, Chloe decided that ditching our suits would be best done now rather than later, stating that we shouldn't push our luck. After we got out of the suits, I had started jumping around like a loser with chattering teeth. Chloe went through the rooms in search of spoils. I was guessing that the shack had once been a gas station of sorts that later someone had moved into in its present mutilated state and had attempted to wall in a few sections for privacy. In here, Chloe called to me from one of the makeshift rooms. I waddled in, trying to keep my legs close together like I'd seen some penguins do in documentaries, thinking that this would help with the cold. It didn't. Being soaked with sweat had been fine in the S-16, but now so much in the bitter freezing elements of Flagstaff. Just how cold was it anyway? It's only 10 below, Chloe told me after seeing my March of the Penguins dance and somehow reading my mind. Stop being such a wimp, she said, waving at the trunk she'd found. Let's see what we can find for us to wear. I was shocked at how fruitful our search had actually been, shocked and super grateful to whoever had left the trunk. Once we finished pulling on the clothes, we looked like a couple of mercenaries. The thick, plain black shirts and pants weren't the snazziest apparel, but the heavy, dark red overcoats that reached to our knees were pretty much wicked. Thick, too. Since Chloe hadn't sweated like an Egyptian slave in her suit, she didn't have to take off any soaked clothing like yours truly. I stripped down to my boxers, which were staying no matter how drenched they were, and pulled on the black pants, dropping my beloved amuso on the floor, never to be picked up again. Then I noticed Chloe looking at me. What? I asked. I'm not about to put on some dead dude's undies. Since I seemed to lack the general part of my brain that tells my mouth to stop while it's ahead, I finished with, just be glad you got to see this much. I once dated a chick for 8 months in college who never ever saw my feet. I'm guessing she didn't think I noticed her, and to be honest, at first I didn't. I mean, Jericho Johnson had just taken off his shirt in the presence of a woman. Of course, she was staring, and possibly even drooling like a bloodhound. Not sure, because I wasn't even close enough to tell. All right, I'm kidding. I mean, for a guy my age and build, you'd think I'd be a little more cut, but sadly I'm not. I don't look like someone in last stage of leukemia or anything, just I'm not exactly built. I've been told that I'm appealing, but not exactly hot. I hope that sums up my body to you, because that's all I've got. You're really tan for a guy who spends most of his time in a basement, Chloe said. And tan. Did I mention that I had a nice tan going on for me? All right, I lied again. What was actually said was, wow, but you're pale. Don't you ever leave that basement of yours? Says the milky white Russian chick that lives on Lost Planet. I shot back, pulling on my shirt. I didn't notice the patch on the right arm of our new coats until I saw Chloe pull on the red overcoat. Please tell me that there aren't any Nazis left. Chloe blinked at me for a second, noticing me point to the swastika on my sleeve. She frowned at hers before saying, we did have a lot of stolen stuff from one of our museums before. I suppose whoever broke in must have stashed some of it here. So, I said, slinging my assault rifle on my back, we're not gonna get, lynched for wearing these. No, not at all, she said, picking up her rifle. If anything, they'll think we robbed the museum and then we'll get arrested. Try and get a good picture of us if you can. Chloe looked halfway decent because she'd already added to her black jumpsuit and heeled boots. All she'd added to her black jumpsuit and heeled boots was the long, rusty red Nazi coat. I, on the other hand, looked like a coloring book in the same coat with my black chucks still on my feet. And think what you want, but the Nazis had some really snappy uniforms. I know it's not cool to say, but they really did. Why are we sneaking in anyway? I asked. I mean, this is where you live, right? Can't we just walk right up and knock on the door? I fell in step behind Chloe as we exited the hovel. We can't. Verd von Klaus has my father deep below the city, so that's where we're going. Giving Klaus the glove would make everything my father has done obsolete. But it's to save his life, I stated, not to point out the elephant in the room, but I thought that we were going to hand it over anyway, regardless of what your old man thought. Chloe didn't answer for a long time as we made our way through the abandoned streets. The snow had picked up since we left the hovel, and I noticed the white flakes looked nice adorning the back of Chloe's head, her jet black hair swaying back and forth as she walked. I've thought about it, she said, finally making me have to remember what we'd even been talking about to start with. Oh yeah, handing over the glove. And you decided against it? I asked, glancing at the dead gauntlet I was wearing on my right hand. Yes, was all she said. We walked in more silence for a while before I asked, won't Klaus be a little agitated if he finds out you're double-crossing him? Yes. Like, kill us kind of agitated? Yes. More silence as we trudged through the white streets. Oh well, I suppose that if I did get killed by some crazy rich Russian guy, that I could go out of this life knowing that I died while trying to help a wicked hot girl save her father's life. Yeah, forget that crap. I wanted to live. I was about to let Chloe know that maybe I could just go back to the hovel and wait it out with my gun when she said, you don't have to come, Jericho. There really isn't a need for both of us to die if it comes to that. She had a point. No need for two people to die if one would just be, wait. If I quit now, I'd look like more of a wimp than I would if it had been my idea. But now it would just look like it seemed Chloe was like, I don't know, letting me out of my end of the deal. I'm so glad that Chloe wasn't able to hear those thoughts. I just told you because they only lasted in reality about 10 seconds. Just enough time for me to say, whatever, woman, you know you'd be lost without me. And that was that. Any thoughts you might have about me throwing in the towel can be trashed, whoever you are, because Jericho Johnson was going to see this possibly horrible train wreck through to the end. All right. So that is it for today because I have a lot to do today and I have to take Zoe to a dance class thing and then help Catherine with some other stuff on top of all the other work. So I got to go get some work done before they get here. But